Hello and welcome to the Heretic magazine, issue 7. My name is Andrew Gough. I am the editor, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our latest edition. Before I share what we have in store with you in this issue, I'd like to discuss a few things that have been on my mind recently, starting with the state and fate of our honeybees. The esoteric genius Rudolf Steiner was also a master beekeeper, and in 1923, in one of his now famous lectures, he predicted that in 100 years' time, the bees would start to die. What Steiner was referring to was new trends in beekeeping that had started in 1908, things such as artificially feeding the queen. Sure enough, 100 years later, in 2008, over 65% of the bees in the United States alone had died. Steiner's prophecy was coming true. While we are all aware of the dangers of pesticides and the unforgivable intrusion of pharmaceuticals such as Monsanto, what if I were to tell you that the beekeepers were part of the equation that's killing the bees? Bees are not creatures of the ground. They do not naturally live on shelves in small boxes. Rather, they are creatures of the air, and they enjoy the freedom of the trees. Bees are perfectly capable of managing their own destiny. Thank you. They don't need humans to suppress their swarm. No, that's part of their natural evolution. They don't need humans to manipulate the queens and the drones. And who ever told humans that honey, the bee's nectar of the gods, was ever intended for us? All I'm saying is if you want to support the bees, then yes, please do so. But take a natural beekeeping course and become part of the solution, not an inadvertent part of the problem. Next, I wanted to talk about the plundering of ancient sites in Syria and Iraq, but also in all parts of the world, and not just by the militant group ISIS. We all agree this behavior is unacceptable, but who in civilized society is prepared to stop it? The criminal behavior of ISIS, the bulldozing of entire sites, the destruction, the sledgehammering of priceless relics, it's unforgivable. But we cannot and should not view that behavior in isolation. For example, in 2008, the United States established a base camp in Babylon for over 5 months. The result? Carnage, prompting the curator of the British Museum to call the whole thing ignorant and stupid, for the destruction of these ancient World Heritage sites was irreparable. Sure, there have always been times of political upheaval, but at least our ancestors had the respect, more often than not, to preserve the existing edifices, even if they were usurping the deities that were worshipped there. One of my favorite examples is Warsaw, Poland, which was decimated during the Second World War. This was an ancient World Heritage site, now destroyed. So what did the Polish people do? They put it back, timber by timber, exactly the way it was. This, I feel, is what we need to do with all the ancient sites that have been destroyed. This is our collective heritage. All we need is a bit more tolerance and the ability to put our differences aside. And now, on a more cheery note, something to celebrate: the release of Graham Hancock's Magician of the Gods, the sequel to his seminal Fingerprints of the Gods. And let me tell you just a little bit about why that book and this one are so important. 20 years ago, 1995, Graham Hancock released Fingerprints of the Gods, and it was way ahead of its time. This book set the academic world on its head, and Graham was attacked. Why? Because he was stipulating, and very intelligently so, that ancient civilization was far more advanced and far more widespread than we had previously given it credit for, but yet it was destroyed by an ancient cataclysm. Now, 2 decades later, and many new discoveries later, such as Göbekli Tepe, Graham reflects on what he has learned and what we need to know today that may impact our worldview, given that this cycle of destruction could possibly occur in our lifetime. But what Graham did was far more important than impacting our worldview. It gave respect to our genre. For me, it inspired me not to be fearful of what people might say about my work, but proceed with it and follow the evidence. So hats off to Graham for his extraordinary contribution. And in issue 7 of The Heretic, he gives us a fabulous interview. I speak with Graham in detail about what's new since Fingerprints of the Gods. Why was there a need for a magician of the gods? And what he reveals, I know, will fascinate you. I hope you enjoy it. I certainly did. And now I have the great pleasure to show you what we have in store for you in issue 7, courtesy of the sublimely beautiful designs of The Heretic's creative director, Mark Foster. Here's what's inside. And so there you have it, another blockbuster issue with loads to contemplate. I hope you enjoy it. I thank you for listening, and I remind you, be a heretic, think again, and until next time, seize the day.